Welcome. My name is Karen, and I'll be your host for this recorded training session in Zoom Fundamentals for meeting hosts and instructors. I'll begin by sharing with you some general features of Zoom that I think that you might find helpful to know. And then we'll also look at the web portal and the Zoom desktop client or Zoom application and see how we use those to adjust our meeting settings and to schedule meetings. And of course, we'll look at hosting meetings, specifically the security features that are built into Zoom, how to manage our participants, and use the collaboration and communication tools. We will create some breakout rooms, and I'll show you how to add a poll to your session to get some feedback from your participants. And you'll also learn how to access your recordings after you have ended your meeting. So let's get started. When you log into your meeting, whether you're a host or a participant, and nothing is yet being shared, you will see a summary of the meeting information along with other features depending on how the meeting has been set up. Along the bottom of the Zoom window, you will see meeting controls, and these will look different whether you're a participant or a host, and also what features you have enabled. You will notice that these controls will disappear if you aren't using them. In order to get them back, simply move your cursor anywhere on your desktop, your computer desktop, and those controls will reappear. So if the controls disappear, remember, just move your cursor and they'll come back. We will be looking at each of these features in more detail, but I'll point out a couple of things right now. First of all, if you want to mute your microphone or unmute your microphone, just simply click on the icon on the control bar, and same with the video. You should check both your audio and your video settings each time you log into a meeting, and you do that by clicking on the little up arrow, and you can make sure that the correct microphone is selected, same with the speakers, and you can test them out from within the meeting. And for video, just click on that little arrow and you can select your camera, and you can access more video settings from within the meeting. If you would like to see the list of participants in your meeting, click on the participant icon in your control bar, and the participant panel opens up beside your meeting window. Here you'll see the list of your participants, their audio and their webcam status, and also available are nonverbal feedback icons. If you click on any of these, the icon will appear beside your name in the participant panel, and you should encourage your participants to use these as well. And by having the participant panel open, you'll be able to readily see that feedback. If you want to step away from your meeting or encourage your participants to do this as well, click on More and select the clock icon, and that will put an indication beside your name or their name that you've stepped away from the meeting room. Just remember when you come back to the session to click on it again to let others know that you have come back. Participants have an additional feature in their nonverbal feedback, and that is to raise their hand. So as a host, you'll see their hand appear beside their name in the participant panel, or if they have their webcam image on, you'll see that raised hand there as well. So you can easily call on them to answer their question. Remember to try those out and use those often in your Zoom meeting. Click on the participant panel, it opens up. You select your feedback, it appears beside your name, and remember to click it again to remove that. As a host, you will also have the ability to clear the feedback from the participants' names as well. Another feature I'll bring to your attention is the ability to choose how you want the webcam video images to appear in your meeting. The default is the speaker view, where the active speaker's video image is larger on the screen and the other participants' images are small thumbnails across the top. If you prefer to see all of the webcam images the same size, then you'll want to switch to gallery view, and that option is in the upper right corner of the Zoom window. If you click on that, then all of the video images will be the same size. The more participants you have, the smaller the webcam images will be. And you may need to scroll through several screens if you have a large number of participants. If a participant does not have a web camera or does not have their web camera turned on, you will see their name or their profile picture if they have one, rather than their webcam image. If you want to go back to speaker view, just click on the speaker view icon that appears. In gallery view, the active speaker will have a yellow box around their webcam image, and that will change depending on who's speaking. Let's have a closer look. When you have videos on, you will notice that you have an additional reactions icon in the control bar at the bottom of the Zoom window. Clicking on it allows you to choose between two, again, nonverbal feedback images, clapping hands or a thumbs up. If you click on one of these images, it will appear directly on top of your webcam image for all to see. It's a great feature to use while a presentation is going on to give some positive feedback. Try these features out in your next Zoom meeting. Check your video settings before starting your video, and then you can select between gallery view or speaker view depending on your preferences. Just note that these options, the gallery and the speaker view options, are only present when others are in the meeting with you. Encourage your participants to use these positive feedback reactions during presentations. During screen sharing, the webcam videos will reduce to a thumbnail size at the side of your meeting window. Let's have a closer look. By default, all of the images will display as thumbnails. If you have a lot of participants, that's a lot of thumbnails down the side of your screen, and you might have to scroll through them. So if they are a distraction to you, you can choose by clicking on the middle icon above the thumbnails to display only the active speaker. Again, it's a small thumbnail view of just the active speaker. If, however, you'd rather not have the webcam images visible during a screen share, simply click on the smaller icon and you'll have the no thumbnail view, and it will just simply indicate in text who is speaking. Just remember that the changes that you make to how the video images are displayed in your Zoom meeting doesn't affect how they are displayed in your participants' meetings. So you might want to bring that to their attention as well. Now we'll have a look at how to set up and schedule meetings using both the web portal and the Zoom application or desktop client. The web portal is used primarily to change your profile settings and to change the default meeting settings. You can also schedule, view, and edit meetings from within the portal. So let's have a quick look at the portal and how to do a few of these things. I'll open up my account at the eClasses Zoom web portal. From the profile page in the web portal, you can access your personal account information and you can make some changes to it. For example, you can edit your email address, you can change the language that the portal displays in, and you can set the time zone where your meetings are taking place. Let's scoot down to the settings page and we'll have a look at a few of the default settings that you can access here in the portal. The meeting settings are organized in various categories. There are security settings, scheduling settings, there are in-meeting settings, both advanced and basic, and notification settings, plus some additional settings. We won't go through them all here, but I do draw them to your attention, and you should go in and have a look to see what the defaults are, and also what is able to be changed here in the web portal. For security purposes, Zoom has enabled by default the waiting room and requiring a passcode when scheduling new meetings. Now you can turn that waiting room off, however it is advisable to keep it on so that you can monitor which participants are trying to access your meeting. We'll take a closer look at the waiting room in a little bit. If you have a pro license, you can customize your waiting room by adding a logo and a waiting room description. Otherwise, with the basic accounts, the waiting room will simply have the meeting topic and a message that the host will be admitting them soon. By default, the host video and the participant videos will be in the off position when meetings begin. However, if you prefer everybody to have their webcam on or their microphone on when the meeting starts, you can enable that here. If you have a pro license, you can add the telephone audio option to your meeting. Basic accounts are limited to computer audio only. There is a join before host option, so if you would like your participants to get into the meeting room before you arrive, you be sure that that option is enabled. By default, all participant microphones will be muted upon entry, but if you would like them to be turned on, by all means you can disable that feature. And the in-meeting settings, we'll bring a few to your attention. You can determine what chat features will be available to your participants, whether they can chat privately amongst themselves, whether they can save the chat messages, and so forth. So you can determine what you want as the default setting. Do note that these are meeting defaults for when you schedule all new meetings, and you will be able to change many of these features on an individual meeting basis, and some of these features you can turn on and off from within the meeting. In order to share files during a meeting with your participants, you will need to enable file transfer. This will allow hosts and participants to share files using the in-meeting chat feature. And once you enable it, you will be able to specify what types of files are permitted. If you want a co-host in the meeting, be sure that this option is enabled. And if you want to use a poll in the meeting, or to have the option to create a poll in the meeting, be sure that this option is enabled as well. And we'll look at polling in more detail. Here's that feature. If you don't like that control bar fading away after a while, you can force it to always be showing in your meeting. I like to have that one on, especially as a meeting host, because you're using that toolbar a lot. And there are screen sharing options in the meeting settings. You can determine here whether only hosts can share, or if you want participants in all of your meetings to have that default of being able to share, then you would set that here. Remember though that you can change these settings within the meetings as well. So as a default, you might consider just having hosts being able to share, and then during the meeting you can turn that feature on or off as you wish. The same with the annotations. So annotations are screen markups, and if you would like the participants to be able to do that, then make sure that this is enabled. Your whiteboard options include allowing the whiteboard to be saved, and then you can determine what file format you want it to be saved in. The nonverbal feedback that we saw in the participants panel, if you don't want to use that in any of your meetings, you can disable it here. This is the only place I believe that you can disable it. Also with the meeting reactions, that's the thumbs up and the clapping that are on the webcam images. You can take that option away from all of your meetings in the web portal meeting settings. If you remove a student from a meeting, you can prevent them from coming back to the meeting by having this disabled. If you would like them to be able to rejoin the meeting, then you'll have to make sure that this option is not disabled. The advanced meeting settings that you should consider enabling are the breakout rooms and the closed captioning. But be sure to have a look at all of the meeting settings that are possible and make sure that the ones that you require for your meetings are either enabled or disabled here in the web portal. Now let's have a look at the meetings page in our web portal. As you can see here, I have no upcoming meetings. So let's go ahead and schedule a meeting from within the portal, and we'll see what that looks like. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to give the meeting a name. So let's call this, we're going to meet with some student groups. Student group A meeting. And you can enter a description in it if you wish. You can use a template if you wish. So if you have a number of meetings that all have the exact same features, you can select one and create a template from it. You can determine when your meeting is going to be. So we're going to set it for Monday at 2 p.m. is fine. And we're going to give it a duration of 1 hour and 30 minutes. Now, do note that this duration is simply for planning or scheduling purposes. Once you've created that meeting, it will be in your upcoming meetings, and you as a host can start that meeting at any time. And it doesn't have to be 1 hour and 30 minutes. You are limited, if you have a basic account, to a 40-minute meeting if you have more than 2 people in that meeting. But if you have just a one-on-one meeting, it will be as long as you make it. The duration that you're setting here is simply for planning purposes. Make sure your time zone is correct for your meeting, and if it's a recurring meeting, click on the recurring option and you can determine whether the recurrence is daily, weekly, monthly, or no specific time. And does it repeat every day, every week, so forth. You can select an end date or end it after a number of occurrences. If you're a licensed user of Zoom, you can require your participants to register first for your meeting, and you will get an email notification who has registered. And if it's a recurring session, you can choose if they have to register for each occurrence of the meeting separately, or register at once and then select which ones they're going to go to. There's some different options there, so be sure that you fill that out. By default, a passcode is included, and you can edit that passcode if you wish, so you can make it something a bit more specific, something like that. And by default, the waiting room is enabled. So all of the other options here are just taken from our defaults under the meeting settings, and we can change them, as I said, for individual meetings in the meeting settings. So if you, for this particular meeting, you don't want them to join before you can disable that feature here, and that will only apply for this meeting. If you have required your participants to register and you have breakout rooms enabled, then you can create the breakout rooms right here. We won't do that for this particular example. You can also set up the meeting to record automatically, and you can assign an alternative host by email. So if you can't make it to your meeting, or if you're running late, you can ask that person to go and start the meeting for you. So when you're finished all of your settings, simply save the meeting, and you'll see a summary of all of the meeting information, and you will be provided with a link either to the registration page or directly to the meeting. By default, links to meetings will have passcodes encrypted within them. Copy the meeting invitation, and just copy it onto your clipboard, and you can pop it into an email that you can send out to your meeting participants. Or if you have a calendar program, you can use it to send out those meeting invitations and get it into your calendar both at the same time. So it's a great feature. If you want to make any changes, you can edit that meeting, and you can start the meeting from this page as well. Here's where you have the option to save the meeting as a template. So if you were going to make more meetings with these exact settings, then you can use that as a meeting template. Also, if you want to create a poll for your meeting, this is the place to do it. From the web portal, under the meeting, you can select poll, and you can add a poll in here. And we'll look at how to do that later, but it's here in the web portal that you would create those polls. Once you have set up all of your default meeting settings in the web portal, you don't actually have to come back to the portal to schedule your meetings or to join meetings, because you can do that directly from the Zoom application or desktop client that you downloaded when you joined your very first Zoom meeting. You'll sign into that Zoom app using the same credentials that you used to get into the web portal, and you can easily start, schedule, and join meetings from there. You can start an instant meeting by clicking the orange button, and your Zoom meeting room will open right up. Now, you haven't scheduled this meeting, so you haven't invited any other participants. So if you would like to get the meeting invitation information for this instant meeting, just click on the up arrow beside participants, and then click on invite, and you will get the meeting information and an opportunity to copy that like you did before when you were scheduling the meeting. So that's a quick way to start an unscheduled meeting. And of course, you can schedule meetings from the Zoom app as well. You have the opportunity to enter the same information that you would have entered in the web portal. It just looks a little bit different. You can do recurring meetings here, but you'll have to set up the recurrences in your calendar or back in the web portal. You'll have the meeting ideas generated. You'll get an opportunity to edit the meeting password, and all of the other options that were in your default meetings will be mirrored here in the meeting settings. And there are advanced options here where you can enable or disable your waiting room and make other changes if you wish. When you've finished setting up your meeting, press schedule, and if you have a calendar program enabled, then you will be taken to that calendar program, and you'll see all of your meeting information there. So in this example, this is Google Calendar, and all of the meeting invitation is in a pre-formatted email down here that I can go in and edit. So if I don't need to give all of that information, I just want to give just the link, I can edit out all of the other information, and I can also personalize it a little bit. I can add my meeting attendees' emails here, and then when I go to save it, it will ask me if I want to send out those invitations from the Google Calendar. And I can either send them, or if you don't want to send them from your Google Calendar, just press Don't Send. The meeting will end up in your own personal calendar, and you'll have the opportunity to copy that meeting invitation and send it in a separate email to your participants. To access the meetings that you do have scheduled, just click on Meetings in the Zoom app, and you'll see all of your upcoming meetings listed on the left. And you can highlight the meeting to access, as I said, the invitation information. You can copy it to the clipboard from here. You can edit the settings. You can delete the meetings from here if you wish, and you can also start the meeting. There are settings within the Zoom app that you can have access to by clicking on your account icon in the upper right corner and then selecting Settings. Note that you can also check for updates to your Zoom app here. So if you click on Settings, you'll open all of the settings that you can access from the app. Now, some of these settings you can also access from the web portal, and there are some settings here that are unique to the app. The general settings allow you to configure what happens when you open Windows. Do you want Zoom to start automatically? You can indicate that you have dual monitors, so when you go to screen share, you can have the choice between your monitors, and you can enter full screen automatically when you join a meeting. Things along those nature are the general settings, and you can have a look at those. You can access your video settings here, and also audio settings, and you can test your speaker and microphone before you actually open up the meeting, so that's a great feature. There are screen sharing settings. You can select a virtual background from the Zoom app if you have a green screen. Some computers can handle the virtual backgrounds without a green screen, but you'll get a notification if that is not the case. There are also recording settings. You can specify where you would like local recordings to be saved on your computer, and there are other options for those local recordings that you may wish to consider. If you have a licensed account, you can save your recordings to the cloud, and in order to manage those cloud recordings, it'll bump you back out to the web portal by clicking here. You can access your profile, statistics. There are some reporting features available in Zoom. There are keyboard shortcuts that you might want to have a look at, and the accessibility options include the size of your closed captions and another opportunity for you to stop that meeting control bar from disappearing. So you can click that option here. You can view more settings that are available in the web portal by clicking here, and it'll open up that web portal for you to sign into. When you're ready to start your meeting, you can start it from the web portal or from the Zoom app. Now we're ready to jump into a Zoom meeting and look at these tools and features for hosting. From within the meeting, you do have access to some security features. Just click on Security in your control bar to open them up. You can enable and disable the waiting room from the meeting. You can also lock the meeting. If all of your participants have arrived and you're not expecting anybody else, or you don't want late arrivals to interrupt your meeting, you can lock the meeting door. You can, from the Security tab, grant permission to participants to share screens, to chat, rename, and unmute themselves. And if you have a problem participant, you can immediately remove them from the meeting by clicking Remove Participant. And you have the option to report that participant to Zoom. We looked at the participant panel before, but now I want to show you a few more features. So click on Participants, and the participant panel will open attached to the side of your Zoom meeting window, where you will now be able to see any nonverbal feedback that your participants are giving you. If your participants forget to remove the icons from their name by clicking on them again, you can clear them all at once by clicking on Clear All. If you prefer, you can detach the participant panel from the meeting room by clicking on the down arrow here and selecting Pop Out. And now you have the participant panel in its own window that can be moved elsewhere on your screen or to a second monitor. With the participant panel open, you can access your invitation. You can mute all of your participants' microphones at once, and you also have access to the meeting setting defaults, and you can change them here within the meeting. So you can allow participants to unmute themselves. You can turn that on and off, and you can again enable the waiting room from this location as well, and lock the meeting. If you want to attach the participant panel back to the meeting window, just click on Merge to Meeting Window, and it will pop back in there. To manage individual participants, simply hover over their names in the participant panel. You can ask them to unmute their microphones. You can ask them to start their videos. You can give them additional privileges by making them host or co-hosts. And you can rename them. So if you have if you have two students with the same name, you can distinguish between them if you prefer. And you can put them in the waiting room individually from this menu as well. You also have the option to remove a particular student and report them from this menu. Let's have a closer look at the waiting room. When a participant enters the meeting and you have the waiting room enabled, this is what they will see. If you have a licensed account, you can add a logo here and put a brief description in, but all participants will be able to test their speaker and microphone directly from the waiting room while they're waiting for you to admit them. As a meeting host, you will get a notification when the participant enters the waiting room. If you're not in the meeting yet, you will get an email saying that you have participants waiting for you in the waiting room. And if you are in the meeting, you'll get a pop-up notice. You can admit the student directly from that pop-up notice, or you can click here to open up the waiting room and have a look. So here we see that there are two participants with the host in the meeting, and there are two people waiting in the waiting room. You can hover over each participant's name to admit them individually, or you can send a chat message to the waiting room to let them know that you'll be with them shortly, or you can admit them all at once by clicking here. When you admit them all, the waiting room area of the participant panel closes and all participants are listed as in the meeting. To open the chat panel, click on it in the meeting controls, and like the participant panel, it will open up merged to the side of your window. And like the participant panel, you can pop it out into its own individual window and move it around elsewhere on your screen. And here is that file feature that we talked about earlier. If you have enabled the file transfer feature in your meeting settings, you will see the icon here, and when you click on it, it will open up a directory and you can find the document that you wish to share, and you just open it and it goes directly into the chat area, and your participants can download the file to their own computers. And you can type message just like in any other chat feature by typing here and pressing send. From within the chat panel, you can also access the chat settings and you can change them from within the meeting. So you can change participants' ability to chat with everybody to just with the host, or you can disable the chat altogether for your participants. To record your meeting, click on record in the control bar. And if you have a licensed account, you will have the option to either record onto your computer or to record to the cloud. Basic accounts will only be able to make local recordings to their computer. In either case, click on record, and you'll notice that in your control bar you now have a pause button and a stop button, and also in the upper left corner of your Zoom window you will see the recording status with an additional pause and stop button. So you can pause the recording or stop the recording from either location. When you pause, the recording status updates to recording paused and you can resume recording again. When you pause and resume recording several times throughout your meeting, you will still end up with only one recording file at the end of your meeting. It simply will not have recorded during the times that it was paused. If, however, you stop the recording and restart the recording several times throughout your meeting, you will end up with several recording files at the end of the meeting. When you press stop recording, you will get a notification that the recorded file will be converted to an MP4 file when the meeting ends, if you're recording to your local computer. If you are recording to the cloud, you will get a notification that you will receive an email when that cloud recording is available. And I'll show you in a little bit where you can find those recordings. Now we're going to look at screen sharing in Zoom. And this is a great feature, especially if you are making a presentation or you are teaching a class and you want to share a PowerPoint or a YouTube video. You're going to use the share screen option. Now note that the share screen icon is always green. It does not mean that you are currently sharing your screen. It will always be green. So it's very easy to see quickly on your control bar. Let's have a look at the share screen options first. The host controls are found by clicking on that up arrow beside the share screen button. And here you will see the settings that were made when you scheduled the meeting, and there are advanced options as well that you can adjust during the meeting, so you can override the settings that were made during the scheduling of the meeting or the default settings, so you can adjust those from within the meeting. When you click the Share Screen button, you will have the opportunity to decide what it is that you're about to share. In this example, I have 2 monitors, so I can choose between screen 1 or screen 2. I can share a whiteboard, I can share from my iPhone or my iPad, or I can share individual applications. I do caution you, if you are going to be sharing an entire screen or a desktop, that you want to make sure that you don't have any highly confidential emails or highly confidential documents open on your computer. So just make sure that those are closed if you're going to be sharing your whole desktop. You can include your computer system sound as well by clicking here. And if you're going to be sharing or showing video clips, you can optimize the screen sharing to reduce some of the lag in those videos. So those are your basic sharing options. And if you go to the advanced sharing options, you can opt to share just a portion of your screen, which is a good option if you don't have a second monitor. You can decide to share just part of your screen and then have your participant panel and your chat panel open on the part of the screen that you're not sharing. You can also share just your computer sound, so you can play some music if you have your participants joining the meeting before you are. You can play just some music and not share the visual part of that as well. Or you can share content from a document camera or a second camera. When you have selected what it is that you're going to share, click the Share button. And what will happen is your meeting controls that are at the bottom of the Zoom window will move to the top of the window, and what you are sharing will be outlined in green. The sharing control bar will disappear after a while, just like the host controls did. But the green and red bar will always be visible on your screen. You can click and drag these bars to a different location if they are interfering with your view of your shared screen. Let's take a closer look at that control bar. So you have 3 new options here on the control bar. You have New Share, Pause Share, and Annotate. New Share allows you to select something else from your computer to share without having to stop share first. When you click Pause Share, your participants will continue to see what you had on the screen when you paused, and then you can go in behind the scenes and open another file in the background. So your participants don't see you opening up that other file, and then when you resume sharing afterwards, they will then see the new file that you've opened up. So it's a great feature to do some behind the scenes work. Let's look at the Annotate feature. When you're sharing something, you can use the annotation tools to add markups to whatever it is that you're sharing. And it's like a little overlay over top of a website or over top of your PowerPoint presentation. Whatever you're sharing, you can add text to it, you can add drawings to it, lines, different shapes, solid shapes, arrows, so forth. You can add a stamp, which is a great feature if you're sharing an agenda, for example. You can use the check mark or the X to mark up that file. You can use the spotlight tool. You can select a laser pointer or an arrow, and that will follow your mouse around the document or the website, and you can highlight information that way for your participants. You can also change the color of the shapes and the text. You can change the line width. You can select different fonts and different sizes of fonts from this annotation toolbar. The other features from your host controls are still there. They're just under More. So if you click on More, you'll still be able to open the chat panel, create breakout rooms, control the recording, and some other options are here as well. Now let's look at what the participants are seeing while you are sharing your screen. Their meeting controls will remain at the bottom of the screen, but they will have an additional sharing toolbar at the top of the screen. The green bar lets them know that they're viewing somebody else's screen, and they have some additional view options. They click on the down arrow, they can select a different zoom level for what they're viewing. If you have given annotation permission to participants, they will see that annotation feature here in their view options, and they can exit full screen if they wish. So you can encourage your participants to use the annotation tools by clicking on their Annotate menu, and they have the same annotation tools that hosts have. Now, you might have some participants who don't realize that everybody can see the annotations that they make. And if you need to remove those annotations from everybody's view quickly, you open up your annotation tools and you select the clear option, and you can clear all of your viewers' drawings. You can clear all of the drawings, just your drawings, but if you clear that, then it will disappear quickly. But also remember that you can disable participants' annotation tools from that More menu, or you might simply just enable showing the names of the annotators and let your participants know that when they add something to the screen, that their name will be associated with that. Okay, while we're talking about annotations, let's have a look at sharing a whiteboard. We don't have to stop sharing in order to start a new share, so we'll just use that new share button and select the whiteboard. So it's one of the share options. So you just select share, and this is what it looks like. It's just a blank screen. Everybody will have that same blank screen on their computer, and it will be labeled whiteboard. The annotation tools will automatically be visible. You could put some text on the screen and have your participants use their annotation tools to add their responses, and they can use either their text tools or they can use their draw tools, and you can use it in that way. You can add an additional page to your whiteboard using the add a page icon down in the bottom. The whiteboard that's associated with the meeting will be available to you throughout that meeting. However, if you leave or end the meeting and come back, you'll start with brand new blank whiteboard. But it's a nice feature to be able to go back to that whiteboard at any time throughout your meeting, and the information that you have there will be available. You can choose to save the whiteboard or any annotations on shared screens for that matter. And in the meeting settings, you can determine whether those are to be saved as PNG image files or PDF files themselves. So there are a number of different ways that you can use the whiteboard in a meeting. It's a great tool for collaborating on ideas and projects. You can use it for brainstorming sessions. Use whiteboards in breakout rooms for your participants to take notes during those breakout sessions. And it's a great tool for creating mind maps. Okay, let's have a look now at breakout rooms. Just like in a classroom setting, you can make use of Zoom's breakout room tool to send your participants off into separate meeting areas. A breakout room has the same functionality as a regular Zoom meeting, but you control when your participants go to those breakout rooms and when they come back. So to start a breakout room or to set up a breakout room, just click on the breakout room tool in the control bar. And this will allow you to configure your breakout rooms before sending your participants to them. So in this example, we only have 2 participants in our meeting with us. And I can determine how many breakout rooms I want to create. So I can create 1 room and put them both in it. I can create 2 rooms and put 1 participant per room. Or I can create 3 rooms. And if I have more participants join, then I can assign those participants to that 3rd room. I can have Zoom automatically assign participants into the rooms randomly, or I can choose to do it manually. And when I've made those decisions, I just click Create Rooms, and I now have the opportunity to assign those participants to the rooms. Note that breakout rooms have not yet started. I am just in the process of creating them, and I have the 2 rooms listed here. Because I chose to put the participants in manually, I must assign them. So I'm going to click on breakout room number 1, and I'm going to assign participants to that breakout room. So I click on that. My 2 participants, now if you have more participants, they will all be listed here, and I can just check off which participants will go into breakout room number 1. So in this quick example, I'm just going to put Jim into that breakout room. Carol will be in breakout room number 2. The breakout rooms have not yet started. I'm still in the configuration stage. So I'm going to look at some of the options that I can choose for my breakout room sessions. You do have the option to go back and have those participants put into the breakout rooms automatically. You can allow the participants to return to the main meeting room at any time, which is probably a good feature to have enabled. You can have those breakout sessions close automatically after a set amount of time, and you can put that set amount of time in. And if you do that, you can set up a notification for yourself to give you a warning when the participants will be coming back into the main room. You can include a countdown. So when you close the breakout rooms, the participants will have a little bit of time to save their files or to wrap up. And you can set that timer to any amount of time that you like. So once you've created those options, you can still go back and move your participants around. If you hover over a participant's name, you'll have the opportunity to move them to another room or exchange them with another participant in another room, and you have them exchange places in those rooms. When you have that all set up the way you want and you want to start your breakout session, you just click Open All Rooms. When you open all rooms, you'll notice that the breakout rooms are now in progress. Jim has gone to breakout room number 1. Carol has gone to breakout room number 2. You, the host, will still be in the main meeting room, and you can see that indicated in your Zoom meeting window. You also have the option to join any of the breakout rooms that you've created. So let's go in and join Carol in breakout room number 2. So just click on Join and confirm that you want to join breakout room number 2. And because you're in breakout room number 2, it gets listed first. So there's Carol and there's me in this case, and Jim is still in breakout room number 1. And you'll have the option to leave that, go back to the main room, and then you can go and join Jim in breakout room number 1. And no matter what room you're in, whether you're in the main meeting room or in one of your breakout rooms, you can broadcast a message to all of the rooms at once. And it will be a text message, and it'll be a pop-up notification in each of the breakout rooms. So you might want to let them know to save their whiteboards or give them some additional instructions at this point, and that's called broadcasting. When the breakout session is over, you can close all of the rooms, and everybody will get a notification that they have however many seconds you set up to leave the breakout rooms. In this case, it was 60 seconds. Remember though, if you enabled the ability for participants to leave the breakout room at any time, and if they all leave the room before that 60 seconds is up and come back to the main session room, then the breakout rooms will close automatically. And you've got everybody back into the main meeting room with you. At any time throughout that meeting, you can open up the breakout rooms again. To do that, just click on breakout rooms again. The way you had configured them remains. If you want everybody to go back to the same breakout rooms, then you would just open the rooms again. You can add a room if you want to, or you can completely start over by recreating the rooms. But just remember that all of the existing rooms will be replaced, and you can set up a different configuration. So it's a great tool. You should try it out in your next Zoom meeting. The only thing I want to bring to your attention is that you can't go into the breakout rooms ahead of time and leave content in there or instructions in there for them, for your participants. So before you send them to the breakout rooms, you might want to put the instructions for the activity into a chat message, and then when they arrive in their breakout rooms, they can open up the chat panel and the message will be there. Or you can pop into each breakout room and give them instructions in that way. So just a quick review for the breakout rooms. It's 5 easy steps. Click on the breakout room tool in the control bar. Configure your rooms, how many rooms you want. Do you want the participants put in automatically or manually? If it's manually, then you will have the opportunity to assign your participants to the rooms, select your different options for the rooms, and then open the rooms to start the breakout session. You can join any of the breakout rooms, broadcast a message to all the rooms, and when you're finished the breakout sessions, you simply close all the rooms. So have fun with that tool. That's a great one. Now let's have a look at how to use polls to get some feedback within your meeting. If you have enabled polling in your meeting defaults, then you will see the poll icon in the control bar. If you don't see it there, then you'll have to go back to the web portal, and under settings in the meeting, you'll have to include polls. And you may also recall when we scheduled a meeting and we went back to look at the meeting settings, that was where we had the opportunity to add a poll question. So if you did add a poll question there, then clicking on polls during the meeting will open up that poll. So if you had a welcome poll, it would appear within your meeting and you can launch it directly from there. However, if you did not create a poll ahead of time, you will have an opportunity to do so by clicking on polls. But what you'll see is the poll screen come up and the opportunity to add a question. But you're not actually going to add the question from within the meeting. If you click add a question, it will take you back to the web portal to create that poll. So let's pop back out to that web portal and we will look at creating a poll question and what it looks like in the meeting. When we click on polls in the meeting and we haven't created a poll yet, this screen will open up within your meeting settings on the web portal, and you can go ahead and add a new poll. So let's call this one colors, just as an example, and you can make the poll anonymous if you prefer, and you type in your question here. So we can say, what is or are your favorite color or colors? We're going to make this a multiple choice question. A single choice question, your participants will only be able to select one of the answers provided. With a multiple choice, they can select more than one. So we'll just put down some colors here as our possible answers. And we'll just give other possibility as well. And we can add a number of questions to this poll. For this example, we'll just have the single question. So when we are finished and we click save, it will open up for us in our Zoom meeting. Now, the participants at this point are not able to see the poll. They won't see it until you actually launch the poll. So we'll go ahead and launch that poll, and this is the host view, and we are told that the attendees are now viewing the questions. And as they start filling out the poll, we will start seeing the results populate this polling screen. When we want to end the poll, if we only want to give them a certain amount of time, or we're going to wait until everybody responds, at which point you would just click on End Polling, and you would then see the results. The participants at this point do not see the results. However, you can share the results with participants by clicking Share Results. And you are reminded here that the attendees are now viewing the poll results. When you're all finished sharing the results, you can either relaunch the polling or you can stop sharing. Simple as that. So remember, you can create the polls ahead of time outside of the meeting from the web portal, and you can create as many polls as you like. And if you have more than one poll, clicking on the polls button in your control bar will give you a choice of which poll to display. In order to end your meeting, you're going to click on End. Only a host can end a meeting. So if you have to leave the meeting before your participants, you can assign one of them to be a host and ask them to end the meeting on your behalf. So when you're ready to end the meeting, click End. Confirm that you're going to end the meeting for everybody, because once you end the meeting, everybody else will get a notification that the meeting has ended and their Zoom meeting window will close. So if you're just leaving the meeting, don't forget to have somebody else end the meeting for you by assigning them to be a host, or end the meeting for all. If you were recording to your computer, you'll see the progress of the conversion of that recording to an MP4. When it is finished converting, the folder will open up and there will be several files, the MP4 file, a playback file, and the audio only file. If you're looking for your recordings, the local recordings by default will go to your Documents folder, and in that Documents folder there will be a Zoom folder created. Remember though that you can change that specification from the Zoom app under the Recordings settings. If it's a cloud recording, you will go back to your web portal to access those recordings, and they will be under the Recordings tab or the Recordings page, and you'll see them under Cloud Recordings. You also have access to local recordings from the web portal, and there'll just be a list of those recordings there. So I'll leave you with a few tips and reminders and best practices for your Zoom meetings, and they include reviewing your meeting settings before each meeting, because you can individualize those settings for each meeting from the default. Always test your audio and your video settings, because your microphones might have become disconnected. You might have changed your camera settings in another program, so it's always a good practice to double check those before each and every meeting. It's a good practice to mute your microphone when you're not speaking and have your participants keep their microphones muted, but you can remind them that the space bar can be used to temporarily unmute a microphone. As a host, you could consider keeping your participant and your chat panels open. If you've got two monitors, you can pop them out from the main Zoom meeting window and put them on the second monitor. And as often as possible, look at the camera. It takes a little bit getting used to, but try to look at that camera as often as possible so that your participants feel that like you're looking directly at them. And we'll use Zoom's collaboration and communication tools to make your meetings and your classes and your sessions as interactive as possible. If you require further resources for Zoom, do check out the Training and Resources page at teachonline.ca through Contact North, where you will find a number of text and video resources to help you with your Zoom meetings.